Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into the very swift emergence of DeepSeek, the AI chatbot app. It's really captured a lot of attention lately.
Absolutely. It's quite the story. And our main source for this exploration is that comprehensive TechCrunch article, DeepSeek, Everything You Need to Know About the AI Chatbot App. That's pretty much our roadmap here.
Right. So our goal today really is to unpack where DeepSeek came from.
Yeah.
How did it rise so fast? What's the tech behind it? And what does it all mean for, the bigger AI picture?
Exactly.
What's really striking, I think, is how this relatively new Chinese AI lab just suddenly topped app charts.
Yeah.
And it sparked this whole debate about, is the U.S. still leading in AI?
Yeah, that's a big part of the conversation.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. The origins. What's the story there?
Well, the backstory is pretty interesting, actually. DeepSeek, its roots are in High Flyer Capital Management. That's a Chinese quantitative hedge fund.
Quantitative hedge fund. So using algorithms, AI for trading?
Precisely. They use sophisticated computer models, and in High Flyer's case, specifically AI, to make trading decisions. And they've been doing this, leveraging AI, since way back in 2019.
Ah, okay. So they had practical experience with AI already.
Right. It gave them a significant head start in understanding the field, practically.
So a mix of high finance and AI. That's a pretty solid foundation.
Yeah.
And who is the key person behind this?
The main figure is Liang Wenfeng. He's described as an AI enthusiast. He actually co-founded High Flyer back in 2015. Apparently, he was interested in trading even as a student.
Okay.
So in 2023, High Flyer set up DeepSeek as this dedicated research lab. Importantly, they kept it separate from their main financial stuff.
Right, focused.
Yeah, and that lab eventually spun off, became its own company, also called DeepSeek. High Flyer was one of the initial backers. It really shows a clear commitment to AI R&D.
Yeah, it sounds like they were serious about building their own capabilities right from the outset.
Totally. From the very beginning, DeepSeek put serious money into building its own data centers. Infrastructure specifically for training their AI models.
Wow.
That kind of upfront resource commitment, well, it really highlights their ambition.
Okay, now here's where it gets, I think, really interesting. The article mentions U.S. export restrictions. Hardware. How did that constraint affect them?
Yeah, this is a really critical point for context. Because of those U.S. export limits, DeepSeek had to use NVIDIA H800 chips, at least for training some of their more advanced models.
And the H800s are less powerful.
Exactly. They're less powerful than the H100 chips that, U.S.-based companies had easier access to. It really just underscores how global politics and trade policy are shaping AI development everywhere.
Right, so they had this hardware hurdle, but they still managed to make big strides. The article also mentions a sort of unique team-building approach.
Yes, their recruitment strategy is quite different. They actively go after people with PhDs in AI from top Chinese universities. Standard enough, maybe? But here's the twist. They also deliberately recruit people without traditional computer science backgrounds.
Oh, interesting. Why?
Well, the thinking, reportedly, is to bring in a wider range of perspectives. They believe it helps the AI get a more, comprehensive grasp of different subjects and real-world stuff.
Huh. That's fascinating. Almost like trying to give the AI broader intuition. Okay, let's get into the models themselves. There were initial releases, then a big leap.
That's right. So DeepSeek first launched some models back in November 2023. There was DeepSeek Coder for programming, a general LLM, and DeepSeek Chat, their chatbot.
Okay.
But the real breakthrough, the thing that got everyone talking, came in spring 2024. That was the DeepSeek-V2 family of models.
V2? What made those such a game changer?
Well, DeepSeek-V2 was designed as a general-purpose model, so it could handle both text and images, analyze and understand both.
Multimodal.
Right. And importantly, it didn't just perform well on various AI benchmarks, those standardized tests for AI skills.
Mm-hmm.
It was also way more cost-effective to run compared to similar models out there at the time.
Ah, the cost factor. That's huge.
It really was. And that combination, performance plus efficiency, it just cranked up the pressure on their competitors in China. Companies like ByteDance, Alibaba, they were forced to lower their prices. Some even started offering models for free just to compete.
Wow, that's direct market impact right there. A clear sign of pressure.
Yeah.
And DeepSeek didn't stop there, right? V3 came next.
Exactly. V3 launched in December 2024, and that further cemented DeepSeek's place. According to their own internal tests anyway, it supposedly outperformed well-known open models like Meta's Llama, and even closed proprietary models like OpenAI's GPT-4o.
Outperforming GPT-4o, that's a big claim.
It is, and like I said, internal benchmark, so you have to be a bit cautious. But those claims definitely generated a lot of buzz, a lot of discussion in the AI community.
And then there's this R1 reasoning model. That sounds particularly advanced.
It's quite interesting, yeah. Released just this January, so very recent. DeepSeek claims R1 performs about as well as OpenAI's O1 model on some key benchmarks.
Okay, and reasoning means?
It means it has this built-in mechanism for self-fact-checking. So it tries to verify information, avoid making common errors. This helps boost its reliability, especially for complex topics. Think physics, science, math.
Okay, so it's designed for accuracy. Does that affect speed? Is there a trade-off?
Yes, exactly. The article points this out. These reasoning models, like R1, they generally take longer to generate answers. Could be a few seconds, could even be minutes sometimes, longer than models without that intense self-checking.
So better reliability, but you wait a bit longer.
That seems to be the trade-off, yeah.
Now, the article also brings up something really important about, well, AI in China generally. The internet regulations.
Right. This is a crucial layer you have to understand. Because DeepSeek's models are developed in China, they're subject to review. Benchmarking by the national internet regulator there to ensure the responses align with what they call core socialist values. And the practical result, according to the reports, is censorship within the DeepSeek Chatbot app on certain sensitive topics. Things like Tiananmen Square, Taiwan's autonomy, those are mentioned specifically.
Okay, so that clearly shows how national rules can directly shape AI output.
Definitely. It's a direct influence.
Let's shift gears a bit to market impact. DeepSeek saw a big jump in visits in March.
That's right. Over 16.5 million visits to their platform in March, which sounds like a lot, and it did put them second behind ChatGPT. But the article also notes their traffic actually dropped about 25% from February to March.
Oh, okay.
And you also have to remember the scale of the leader. ChatGPT had like over 500 million weekly active users around then.
Right. Put 16.5 million in perspective. Significant, but still way behind the leader.
Exactly. Gaining traction for sure, but the landscape is still dominated by the big players.
The article raises a really interesting question about DeepSeek's business model. It doesn't seem normal.
Yeah, it's a bit murky. If they have a clear public business model, it's not obvious. What we know is they're pricing their products and services below typical market rates. Some stuff is even free.
Below market or free?
Yeah.
How do they manage that, especially without investor money? The article says they haven't taken VC funding.
Correct. Despite reported interest from VCs wanting to invest, they haven't taken external funding so far.
So what's their explanation for the low cost?
Well, DeepSeek themselves point to big breakthroughs they've made internally, making their AI model development and training much more efficient.
Okay. Efficiency breakthroughs.
That's their claim. But the article does mention some industry experts are questioning the figures, the data they've put out to back up these efficiency claims.
Ah, so some skepticism there.
A bit, yeah. So the exact reason for their pricing strategy is still kind of a puzzle.
But even with that uncertainty, developers seem to be jumping on board, using their tech.
Absolutely. While the models aren't strictly open source, they use what are called permissive licenses, meaning developers have a lot of freedom. They can use the models for commercial projects, build their own apps and services on top.
And that's proving popular.
Very popular. On platforms like Hugging Face, that big hub for AI models, there are reportedly over 500 derivative models based just on DeepSeek's R1, created by other developers. And those have been downloaded combined like 2.5 million times.
Wow, 2.5 million downloads. That's serious developer engagement.
It really speaks to the interest, yeah. People clearly see utility in their base models.
This whole rapid rise, it's definitely made waves in the tech world. The article notes it even caused a temporary dip in NVIDIA's stock price, and got a comment from OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman.
It really did. I mean, think about that. A relatively new player causes enough stir to affect a major chipmaker's stock and prompts the CEO of arguably the leading AI company to respond publicly.
Yeah, that's significant impact.
It really underscores the perceived potential, right, and the competitive threat DeepSeek represents. It's been described, in different ways, upending AI on one hand, maybe overhyped on the other.
Okay, let's move into some of the heavier concerns highlighted in the article. Geopolitics, security. This is where it gets quite complex.
Indeed it does. The U.S. government has definitely sat up and taken notice. Back in March, several bureaus in the U.S. Commerce Department banned the use of the DeepSeek app on government devices.
A ban on government devices. That signaled clear security concerns.
Yes, potential data security risks, questions about the tech's origin.
And it wasn't just the government, right? Microsoft's action seems quite noteworthy, too.
Yeah, this is interesting. Microsoft initially added DeepSeek's models to its Azure AI Foundry service. That's for enterprise clients.
Okay, so they embraced it initially.
Initially, yes. But then later, Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, testified at a Senate hearing. This was May 2025, according to the article. And he revealed Microsoft had subsequently banned its own employees from using DeepSeek.
Ban their own employees. Why the reversal?
Citing concerns about data security and the potential for propaganda really shows the complex, maybe even contradictory ways big tech is navigating this.
And what about other big AI players? OpenAI's view.
OpenAI has taken a pretty strong line. They've publicly called DeepSeek state-subsidized and state-controlled. They even went so far as to recommend the U.S. government consider a full ban on DeepSeek's models.
Wow, recommending a ban. That highlights the competitive anxiety and security fears in the U.S. AI scene.
Absolutely.
But NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, had a slightly different take.
He did. On an earnings call, he actually acknowledged DeepSeek's excellent innovation, and he specifically noted their advanced reasoning models need a lot of computing power.
Which is good for NVIDIA, presumably.
Exactly. From NVIDIA's perspective as a hardware supplier, that demand for high-performance chips is, well, it's business, so it shows the sort of nuanced, sometimes overlapping interests at play here.
And these concerns, these actions, they aren't just limited to the U.S.
No, the article mentions other places too. South Korea, New York State. They've also put restrictions in place, specifically banning DeepSeek on government devices there as well.
So a broader international concern about the potential risks.
It suggests that, yes.
So looking forward, what's the outlook for DeepSeek? The article seemed to suggest some uncertainty.
Yeah, I think that's fair. While we can probably expect them to keep improving their AI models, they seem very capable, their future path looks increasingly complicated. Because of this growing scrutiny, the potential for more restrictions, especially from the U.S., the core underlying worry seems to be about harmful foreign influence through this powerful, fast-moving tech.
Okay, so let's try and wrap up this deep dive. We've really traced DeepSeek's incredible journey, haven't we? From an internal lab at a finance firm to this major, much-discussed player on the global AI stage.
Precisely. We've looked at its roots in quantitative finance, the development of these really competitive, cost-effective models, V2, V3, that R1 reasoning model, and their, slightly unusual way of building their team.
And maybe the biggest takeaway, that real aha moment for you listening, is just the sheer speed. The speed and the impact. How quickly this Chinese AI lab managed to challenge the status quo, sparking huge debates about AI leadership and raising these really significant geopolitical and security questions.
It absolutely highlights how dynamic and fast-paced this whole AI world is right now. And this whole DeepSeek story, it really leaves you with a big question to think about. Given these rapid tech advances and this tangled web of geopolitics we've talked about, what are the wider implications for the future, for AI innovation globally, for international competition?
Right. And maybe also, what responsibility do we have as individual users, as governments? How do we navigate this landscape?
Exactly. It's definitely something worth mulling over.